Chapter 1. It's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. Ah, what a grand and intoxicating innocence. Imagining the end of capitalism is easy, Nerevar. Come, let us drive the mongrel dogs of the empire from Morrowind. We will all dream together as one under the sixth house. All right, fine. I will begin. In one of the key scenes in Alfonso Cuarón's 2006 film Children of Men, Clive Owen's character Theo visits a friend at Battersea Power Station, which is now some combination of government building and private collection. Cultural treasures, Michelangelo's David, Picasso's Guernica, Pink Floyd's Inflatable Pig, are preserved in a building that is itself a refurbished heritage artifact. This is our only glimpse into the lives of the elite, holed up against the effects of a catastrophe which has caused mass sterility. No children have been born for a generation. Theo asks the question, how all this can matter if there will be no one to see it? The alibi can no longer be future generations, since there will be none. The response is nihilistic hedonism. I try not to think about it. What is unique about the dystopia in Children of Men is that it is specific to late capitalism. This isn't the familiar totalitarian scenario routinely trotted out in cinematic dystopias. See, for example, James McTeague's 2005 V for Vendetta. In the P.D. James novel on which the film is based, democracy is suspended and the country is ruled over by a self-appointed warden. But wisely, the film downplays all this. For all that we know, the authoritarian measures that are everywhere in place could have been implemented within a political structure that remains, notionally, democratic. Ah, sounds familiar, doesn't it, Nerevar? Maybe you should ask Archcanon Sarioni if his jangling pockets full of ill-begotten coin weigh down his heart. Moving on. The war on terror has prepared us for such a development. The normalization of crisis produces a situation in which the repealing of measures brought in to deal with an emergency becomes unimaginable. Indeed, when will the war be over? Watching Children of Men, we are inevitably reminded of the phrase attributed to Frederick Jameson and Slavoj Žižek, that it is easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. That slogan captures precisely what I mean by capitalist realism. The widespread sense that not only is capitalism the only viable political and economic system, but also that it is now impossible even to imagine a coherent alternative to it. There's that phrase again. I think your Enoir brain lacks imagination, Fisher. Come, dream. Once, dystopian films and novels were exercises in such acts of imagination, the disasters they depicted acting as narrative pretext for the emergence of different ways of living. Not so in Children of Men. The world that it projects seems more like an extrapolation or exacerbation of ours than an alternative to it. In its world, as in ours, ultra-authoritarianism and capital are by no means incompatible. Internment camps and franchise coffee bars coexist. Well, yes, of course. Where else should a parched correctional officer quench their thirst with some Ashland dust broth? In Children of Men, public space is abandoned, given over to uncollected garbage and stalking animals. One especially resonant scene takes place inside a derelict school, through which a deer runs. Neoliberals, the capitalist realists par excellence, have celebrated the destruction of public space, but contrary to their official hopes, there is no withering away of the state in Children of Men, only a stripping back of the state to its core military and police functions. I say officials' hopes since neoliberalism surreptitiously relied on the state even while it has ideologically excoriated it. This was made spectacularly clear during the banking crisis of 2008, when, at the invitation of neoliberal ideologues, the state rushed in to shore up the banking system. The catastrophe in Children of Men is neither waiting down the road, nor has it already happened. Rather, it is being lived through. There is no punctual moment of disaster. The world doesn't end with a bang. It winks out, unravels, gradually falls apart. What caused the catastrophe to occur, who knows? Its cause lies long in the past, so absolutely detached from the present as to seem like the caprice of a malign being, a negative miracle, a malediction which no penitence can ameliorate. Such a blight can only be eased by an intervention that can no more be anticipated than was the onset of the curse in the first place. Action is pointless. Only senseless hope makes sense. Superstition and religion, the first resorts of the helpless, proliferate. Yes, I have seen better blights. Don't be so ungrateful, Nerevar. Yes, I know the corpus still itches. I made disease fly before you. No, I'm not being defensive. Okay. But what of the catastrophe itself? It is evident that the theme of sterility must be read metaphorically, as the displacement of another kind of anxiety. I want to argue this anxiety cries out to be read in cultural terms, and the question the film poses is, how long can a culture persist without the new? What happens if the young are no longer capable of producing surprises? Children of Men connects with the suspicion that the end has already come, the thought that it could well be the case that the future harbors only reiteration and repermutation. Could it be that there are no breaks, no shocks of the new to come? Such anxieties tend to result in a bipolar oscillation. The weak messianic hope that there must be something new on the way lapses into the morose conviction that nothing new can ever happen. The focus shifts from the next big thing to the last big thing. How long ago did it happen, and just how big was it? T.S. Eliot looms in the background of Children of Men, which, after all, inherits the theme of sterility from the wasteland. The film's closing epigraph, Shanti, 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 has more to do with Eliot's fragmentary pieces than the Upanishads' piece. Perhaps it is possible to see the concerns of another Eliot, the Eliot of tradition and the individual talent, ciphered in Children of Men. It was in this essay that Eliot, in anticipation of Harold Bloom, described the reciprocal relationship between the canonical and the new. The new defines itself in response to what is already established. At the same time, the established has to reconfigure itself in response to the new. Eliot's claim was that the exhaustion of the future does not even leave us with the past. Tradition counts for nothing when it is no longer contested and modified. A culture that is merely preserved is no culture at all. The fate of... What's with that look, Nerevar? Look, this is making me uncomfortable. Moving on. The fate of Picasso's Guernica in the film, once a howl of anguish and outrage against fascist atrocities, now a wall hanging, is exemplary. Like its Battersea hanging space in the film, the painting is accorded iconic status only when it is deprived of any possible function or context. No cultural object can retain its power when there are no longer new eyes to see it. We do not need to wait for Children of Men's near future to arrive to see this transformation of culture into museum pieces. The power of capitalist realism derives in part from the way that capitalism subsumes and consumes all of previous history. One effect of its system of equivalence, which can assign all cultural objects, whether they are religious iconography, pornography, or Das Kapital, a monetary value. Walk around the British Museum where you see objects torn from their life worlds and assembled as if on the deck of some predator spacecraft, and you have a powerful image of this process at work. In the conversion of practices and rituals into merely aesthetic objects, the beliefs of previous cultures are objectively ironized, transformed into artifacts. Capitalist realism is therefore not a particular type of realism, it is more like realism in itself. Ha! Fools! Good thing I'm not like that. Kagranak was a profane blasphemer and enemy of my people. Yes, he was also of diminutive stature and he smelled of soil and lubricant, but I treat Kagranak's tools with care, I assure you. That's why I entrusted Sunder to Dagoth Vemin, the biggest neat freak I know. Have you been to Veminal? It's spotless, disgustingly, intoxicatingly spotless. Keening, whatever, it's probably around here somewhere. There are only so many deep mountain citadels to go around. Why don't you go look then? It's probably in some shrine. Well, anyway, sadly that concludes today's verse. Yes, Nerevar, I too am imagining alternative futures, suns and moons, certain signs, corpus. Next time we will examine dark freedoms, postmodernism, and Kurt Cobain. Also, I spent all my drakes on this damn Dwemer translation already, and those mongrel extraplanar dogs won't give me more characters until next month. It's okay. Maybe if people find this entertaining, I can justify opening another account with the Kamona Tong. Infected with the covetous salivation over coin as they are, they will lend to just about anyone. No, we will not take Wraithguard to Arils.